Welcome on in, members of the chapter. This is Sprues and Studs, and today we have a very special and interesting video that was actually concocted and brought to you by a member of this chapter. So the member's name is Kaija, and this member wanted to see basically the size comparison between all the different Gravis armored Space Marines that have been released by JoyToy in the past 1 to 2 years. And this member decided to donate some money to convince me to do this video. So I was like, yeah, why the heck not? My soul can be bought by the temptations of the Benjamin as well as Almighty Slanesh. But clearly I digress, so let's jump right into the size comparisons. Let the Gravis feast commence. So the first one that we have over here is obviously the first Captain in Gravis armor that was released probably like a year and a half ago. I really can't remember. So let's see how tall this action figure is. So for the purpose of this video, I am going to be measuring from the bottom of the Gravis boots all the way to the top of the action figure's head to determine the height of these action figures. There is nothing to do but take a look at how tall this guy stands. So when we put this trusty ruler next to this Gravis captain, it looks like he stands in at about 4 3/4 inches tall. And let's see if this action figure is smaller or shorter than the rest of his brethren. Put them off to the side over here. And the next one that we are going to be taking a look at is the Inceptors. And we shall see exactly how tall this particular Inceptor is, and then put him next to the ruler. So it looks like from the top of the helmet all the way down to the bottom of this action figure's foot, I would have to say it is roughly around the same height as the Gravis Captain, which is again 4 3/4 inches tall. And the next one that we're going to take a look at, which is the only non-Ultramarine, which is my Blood Angels Aggressor. So let's see exactly how tall this Blood Angels Aggressor is from top of helmet to bottom of boot. And to no one's surprise, once again, we are still looking at 4 3/4 inches. Are we starting to see a trend here? Now, the next action figure we are going to be taking a look at is the Heavy Intercessor, and we shall see exactly how tall this Heavy Intercessor is, and I don't think we're going to be surprised too much by the height of this one. And you know what? This one, it looks like we are roundabout near 5 inches tall, which is very interesting. So we shall see if any of the rest of the action figures has grown in height. And up next, we have the Eradicator. And now let's take a look at how tall this Eradicator stands. Measuring from top of the head to the bottom of foot, it looks like this Eradicator roughly stands at the same 5 inches tall. It's a little bit under, maybe like 1/8 or 2 inches shorter than 5 inches, but it's pretty much there. So we have seen a little bit of increase in height over time, as the first ones that we have looked at were released a little bit earlier in JoyToy's lineup. The next action figure that we're going to move on to is going to be the Heavy Intercessor Captain, as you can see right here. Let's see if the Heavy Intercessor Captain has grown or shrank compared to the rest of his brethren. And let's see what we have here. And it looks like this Heavy Intercessor Captain is also the same height as the Eradicator, as well as the Heavy Intercessor that this captain leads. And we're looking at, again, pretty much a tad under 5 inches, maybe 1/8 less. So that is this particular captain. And then moving on, we will be taking a look at Mr. McCragg himself, which is Marneus Calgar. This guy is clearly based off the Aggressor platform. So let's see how tall this particular action figure stands. So it appears that from the top of Marneus's head all the way down to his boots, his total length is actually round about a solid 5 inches, which is 1/8 or 1/4 inch taller than the rest of the other normal action figures right here. And obviously this is befitting of Calgar, just because, you know, famous people or characters, you think that they are a little bit taller. So in this case, Mr. Calgar is taller than the rest of the regular grunts, so I would have to say. And the final action figure that we are going to be taking a look at today is going to be the second release of the Gravis Captain. And this guy is actually an aberration in that he is quite chunky and very large compared to the rest of the action figures. So in my review video, I did comment on how tall this action figure is compared to the rest of the Space Marines. And judging by how the ruler looks, we are looking at 5¼ inches tall roughly from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. So this guy is the tallest Gravis armored action figure in the whole entire lineup that I have in my possession. So let's just put this second release of the Gravis Captain next to the first release of the Gravis Captain, and you can clearly notice that there is a very distinct size difference between the first guy versus the second guy. The second Gravis Captain appears to be standing about a half a head taller than his brethren over here. So the final thing that I will do is to actually put the 4¾ inch version on the left hand side and the roughly 5-inch version in the middle next to Calgar, so we can get a full taste of the height of all these action figures. If you put these action figures side by side next to each other, I don't think you can actually tell the difference that much. Again, this captain is 4¾ inches. This guy is a little bit under 5 inches. Calgar is around 5 inches, and this guy is 5¼ inches tall. So here is the full spread of the different heights of all the Gravis armored Space Marines, and let me wrap this one up. All right, members of the chapter, I hope you enjoyed this Gravis Galore action figure video where we compared all the sizes of the different Gravis armored Space Marines that have been released by JoyToy in the past 1 to 2 years. I want to also personally thank Kaija for donating to the chapter. It is very much appreciated, and once again, the proceeds will go back into making more content for this chapter to keep the engine going and running. So one thing that I'll have to say is that I was actually very, very surprised in that there was some size variation between all these action figures here. I did not expect any size variation whatsoever, except I knew that the second Gravis Captain, which is standing in front of me, was taller than the rest of the action figures that have been released. But I thought that all of them were going to be just 4¾ inches. But obviously we found out that, well, the earlier releases, most of the Gravis armored action figures were 4¾ inches, while the middle releases are around roughly a little bit under 5 inches. And finally, the special character Marnius Calgar stands a little bit above the rest of the regular normal grunt Space Marines. And finally, you've got this beast over here that towers above the rest of them. So anyways, members of the chapter, I hope that you enjoyed this comparison video. And remember, depending on the suggestion that you have made, as well as a little bit of donation, you can actually see your custom video being produced by yours truly. Also, with that being said, if there are any action figures that interest you, please click on the link in the description below, where you will be taken to a very reputable website where I buy all these action figures. But you need to keep in mind that some of these action figures that I have featured in this video are old and may not be produced anymore. And also, please do not forget to use the code SNS to get 12% off on all these action figures. And in closing, I will see you all in the next one.